Hello and welcome back to Project Luxury. There are numerous methods to generate power, including coal, wind, sunlight, water, and nuclear energy. Among these, nuclear power is the most controversial. Despite the debate surrounding it, the US is on the verge of opening the largest nuclear power plant in the nation. Is this a wise decision? Today we'll examine America's plan to upgrade a 40-year-old nuclear power plant into the country's largest power source. First, let's discuss why nuclear power is such a controversial topic. On paper, it appears to be one of the best options for power generation. For instance, 1 kilogram of coal can power a washing machine for 6 hours, and 1 kilogram of oil can do so for 9 hours. However, 1 kilogram of nuclear fuel, like uranium, can power a washing machine for an astonishing 2,000 years. Although I'm not a nuclear physicist, I'll try to explain how nuclear power generation works. Essentially, unstable atoms are placed in a reactor, where a tiny particle is fired at them, causing the atoms to split apart. This splitting releases a significant amount of thermal energy, which is used to turn water into steam. The steam then turns turbines, generating electricity. However, there is a downside. When the atoms split, they leave behind radioactive waste, which emits particles and radiation that can be harmful to humans and other life forms. Nuclear power plants strive to safely contain the waste, but there have been several high-profile accidents in recent decades. For example, in 2011, the Fukushima power plant in Japan was struck by an earthquake and a subsequent tsunami. This disaster led to one of the worst nuclear accidents in history. The reactors were damaged, cooling systems failed, and the plant experienced a catastrophic meltdown. Radioactive material was released into the ocean and the atmosphere, forcing the evacuation of anyone living within the 20 kilometers of the plant. More than a decade later, the area remains radioactive. No one is allowed to live in the Fukushima area, and it may remain unsafe for another 40 years. Before Fukushima, the Chernobyl disaster in Ukraine was even more infamous, as it released radioactive clouds over Europe. The exact impact is unclear, but it could potentially have affected millions, increasing cancer rates and birth defects. The National Research Center for Radiation Medicine in Kyiv estimated that about 3 million people in Ukraine alone were harmed by the Chernobyl incident. Even when nuclear power operates as intended, storing nuclear waste is complex and imperfect. Typically, the waste is sealed in barrels and buried in remote underground caves to prevent radiation leakage. However, this waste remains hazardous for over 1,000 years, raising questions about the long-term safety of such storage. These issues contribute to the controversy surrounding nuclear power. While it generates significant energy, it also poses substantial risks. In 1990, shortly after Chernobyl, Italy rejected nuclear power completely. In 2011, following Fukushima, Germany shut down 8 of its plants. Globally, many countries are phasing out nuclear power in favor of alternative energy sources. However, not all countries are following this trend. For instance, in the US, there's a plant Vogtle in Germany. The nuclear power plant was initially conceived in the 70s during a period of enthusiastic expansion of nuclear power in the US. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission issued numerous construction permits, including one for Plant Vogtle, which featured 2 reactors and a pair of cooling towers, each 170 meters tall. The project was costly, around $9 billion at the time, equivalent to nearly $20 billion today. Despite the high cost, though, the project faced a significant challenge in 1979 with the 3 Mile Island incident in Pennsylvania, an automatic valve malfunction that led to a partial meltdown, raising public and regulatory concerns about nuclear safety. Consequently, the NRC halted the issuance of new permits, ending the nuclear expansion rush and canceling nearly half the ongoing or planned projects. Some companies working on nuclear projects went bankrupt overnight, resulting in significant financial losses. In 1985, Forbes described the situation as a disaster on a monumental scale, stating that only the blind or biased could believe that money would have been well spent. However, not all nuclear power plants in the U.S. were canceled. Construction on Plant Vogtle and a few others continued, despite the introduction of new safety regulations and greatly increased costs. Even after the Chernobyl disaster in '86, construction at Plant Vogtle persisted. Although this decision might seem risky in light of Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, the relative risks of nuclear power are low when a plant is well organized and well run. Chernobyl, for example, was the result of a poor reactor design and under-trained staff. The team at Plant Vogtle was confident that they wouldn't repeat these mistakes, and they were right. The 2 reactors at Plant Vogtle would have been operational ever since, with only one significant incident in 1990 when a truck hit a power line, causing a 15-minute outage. This issue was quickly resolved with no damage to the reactors or surrounding area. Plant Vogtle has been running smoothly for decades, generating nearly 20 million megawatt hours of energy annually. It is one of America's top 10 power sources in an average year, demonstrating the benefits of nuclear power when everything goes according to plan. This success is likely why the plant's owners, supported by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, have decided to expand the project. Now, let's talk about Plant Vogtle 2.0. The nuclear expansion of the 70s is abruptly ended after the 3 Mile Isle accident. The NRC didn't commission new projects in the 80s or 90s. However, by the early 2000s, the sentiment in America began to shift. George H.W. Bush, who had just been taking office, launched a program called Nuclear Power 2010, aiming to establish new nuclear generators across the country with generous subsidies for participating companies. This period, dubbed the Nuclear Renaissance, marked a resurgence in nuclear power interest more than 20 years after the 3 Mile Island disaster. By then, the 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl disasters were fading memories, and successful nuclear operations like the Palo Verde power station provided a positive example. Palo Verde, commissioned in the 70s and surviving the NRC's project cancellations in the 80s, had thrived with 3 nuclear reactors, making it the largest power source in the U.S. Inspired by Bush's program, the Vodal team decided in 2006 to expand and surpass Palo Verde by adding 2 more reactors, bringing their total to 4. They applied for a permit from the NRC in 2006. Unlike previous decades, the NRC approved this request during the nuclear renaissance, granting the permits in August 2009. Between 2009 and 2017, 13 companies applied for licenses to build 25 new nuclear reactors, echoing the 70s boom. However, this resurgence was short-lived. In the early 2011, the Fukushima disaster reignited fears, causing many NRC permits to be canceled or suspended. Despite these setbacks, Vodal continued. The NRC continued enhanced health and safety measures, ensuring the new reactors were protected from seismic events and other potential disasters like airplane crashes, reflecting post-9/11 concerns. Environmental groups and anti-nuclear protesters challenged the project in court but ultimately failed. Construction on the 2 new reactors at the Vodal site began in 2013, 10 years after the project was proposed. In 2023, one of Vodal's new reactors was completed and connected to the power grid. The other reactor is nearing completion and is expected to start operation in 2024. These reactors are significant as the first newly constructed nuclear units in the U.S. in over 30 years. According to Vodal's official website, each new reactor weighs more than the Statue of Liberty, and their containment buildings require as much steel as 25,000 cars and enough concrete to build a sidewalk from Miami to Seattle, over 5,000 kilometers. This material is primarily used to contain radiation. The new reactors are not just massive but also cutting edge, featuring advanced safety systems such as an automatic shutoff that doesn't require human intervention or external power. They also use fewer pipes and valves than older models, meaning they are more efficient, cleaner, and safer, and they're also much more efficient. Once both reactors are operational, they will double Vodal's original output, making it the largest single source of energy in the US. However, this advancement came at a cost of around $35 billion. In addition to the $20 billion already spent on the original reactors, and despite this high cost, the project exceeded and proceeded, contrasting with countries like Germany, which are shutting down their nuclear plants. Vodal's expansion raises an important question about the right to approach energy production. While it may seem safer for a country to eliminate the nuclear powers, this decision has significant trade-offs. Countries without nuclear energy need to find alternative sources, ideally renewable options like wind or hydroelectric. However, to match Vodal's output, the U.S. would need to build a wind farm covering nearly 20% of Georgia, which may not be feasible. Another alternative is fossil fuels, but they are harmful to the climate. Nuclear power, being carbon-free, presents a complex choice between risk and environmental impact. This dilemma poses a challenging question. Which approach is right? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.